They said Harold Devereux fell in love with the wrong woman. They also said he fell from a ladder. But when I found him, the bruises told a different story. So did the ground, undisturbed, soft, untouched. No ladder, no fall. The orchard was still. Dew clung to the peaches like tiny pearls. Harold's body lay beneath the third tree in the southern row, neck turned just wrong, his wedding ring missing, his shirt unbuttoned. The workers were the first to find him, or so they claimed, but none had a name for the woman they saw running from the field at dawn. Only her dress, pale yellow, only her hair, dark, long, loose. I walked the rows myself, no footprints, but in the mud beneath the roots I found something else. A torn scrap of paper pressed flat by someone's knee. It was part of a letter, handwritten, curved, elegant, feminine. Can't keep doing this. She suspects everything. The she wasn't Harold's wife, because Harold's wife was already dead, 3 months ago, buried not 50 meters from where he now lay, and someone had placed a fresh yellow rose on her grave this morning.
The study hadn't been entered in weeks. That's what the caretaker said, nervously, like he wasn't sure if he was lying or telling a version he preferred. The key hung on a chain behind the cellar door, dusty, untouched, but the lock turned easily, too easily. Inside, books, hundreds of them, mostly romance novels, faded covers and worn spines. An antique desk stood beneath the window, its drawers locked, except one which hung slightly open. Inside, a silk scarf stained with something brown, and a photograph partially burned. Harold and a woman, not his wife, but not quite his mistress either. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at whoever took the picture. I turned it over, written in smudged pencil. She knows. She always has. The back wall of the study was lined with glass cabinets. Inside, bound letters, dozens of them, same handwriting as the orchard scrap, all unsigned. But one envelope had something extra inside, not paper, but fabric, a torn button, polished, expensive, and on the corner of the envelope, a fingerprint, dried, partial, reddish black. There were no women living in the estate, not officially.
They kept the dining hall clean, as if dust dared not settle where legacy had eaten. The long table was set for no one, silverware aligned, dishes uncracked. The kind of perfection only a house with too many secrets insists on maintaining. The caretaker said the family hadn't used this room since the funeral, but something felt curated. Above the mantel hung the infamous Devereux family portrait, Harold, his late wife, and a young woman with a forced smile standing just behind them. No one in the house claimed to know who she was. I moved closer. The canvas was too new, the frame heavy, modern. I lifted it gently from the wall. Behind it, a hollow space, not a safe, a message board. Dozens of pinned notes, layered atop one another, like confessions never sent. Letters from Harold, all to the same woman, desperate, poetic, obsessive. And one letter not like the others. Different handwriting, sharper, angrier. You think she's choosing you. She isn't choosing at all. She's collecting. Pinned to it was a necklace, a delicate chain with a pendant shaped like a teardrop, blood-stained. I'd seen it in the photo from the study, but in the portrait, the woman behind Harold was wearing it. They'd painted over the truth. No one had mentioned a laundry room, no records, no keys, no footsteps. But the scent of lavender drifted faintly from beneath the floorboards, not artificial, fresh. Someone had been cleaning what they couldn't burn. A narrow stairwell behind the wine cellar led downward. At the base, a heavy wooden door rotted at the edges. I pushed it open. Inside, linen racks, rusted sinks, and a wooden table with a basin still filled. Water hadn't evaporated. That meant recent use. On a drying line, a single white sheet, still damp. Something small was pinned to it, folded, soaked, barely legible. A letter. I took it down carefully. The ink had run, but fragments remained. You said no one would find out, but she reads everything. She's not just jealous, she's exact. I unfolded the edge. At the bottom, one word stood alone as if added after the rest had dried. Lavinia. The name didn't match any member of the Devereaux family, but the caretaker had stuttered when I asked about staff, and he had kept glancing at the cellar door, as if someone beneath him was still listening. The north wing was supposed to be sealed. After Harold's death, the entire section had been shut off, for renovation, they said. But the dust was too disturbed, and the light fixture near the second-floor landing flickered in a rhythm too deliberate to be electric. It was Morse code. Short pulses, 3 long, an S, then silence. Behind the third panel on the hallway wall, I found it. Not a room, a passage. Narrow, cramped, just wide enough for someone slight to slip through. It ran parallel to the guest bedrooms, with thin slits in the wood, not cracks, but peepholes, observing points. She'd been listening. For how long, and to whom? There were notes scrawled along the inside of the passage in smudged pencil, short phrases. He lies after wine. She cries when the wind hits 2 a.m. She hates the smell of peaches. I reached the far end and found a ladder leading down into the pantry, hidden behind a swinging shelf. Lavinia wasn't just staff, she was surveillance. And in the passage dust, I found a set of prints, bare feet, small, recent, still damp. But the most chilling part wasn't what I saw, it was what I heard. On the other side of the wall, the caretaker was speaking in a whisper. No, she's still here. I saw the yellow dress again, this morning, same perfume. A pause. I know she's dead. That doesn't mean she left. The East Wing bedroom hadn't been touched in years. That's what they said. But the bed was still made, the mirror clean, the perfume faint but present, lavender, again. Beneath the mattress, I found a red leather-bound book, unmarked.
The kind meant for secrets, not memories. No name on the cover, no introduction. Inside, dozens of entries, but not like a normal diary. Each page held two voices, contradictory, layered, reactive. A conversation between obsession and denial. I watched her brush her hair again. She doesn't know I see. She never knows. He says he loves me, but I hear it like a warning. It wasn't clear who wrote what, but the patterns revealed something deeper than identity. It was intimacy dissected, jealousy turned mathematical. One page stood out, the writing urgent, aggressive. If she won't choose, I'll end it. One of us has to go, and if it's not me, then it's him, or her again. Someone had drawn an infinity symbol next to it, crossed out violently. The last page was blank, except for a pressed flower, dried, fragile, a yellow daffodil. Daffodils don't grow in this region, but they do in one place nearby, Meadow Ridge, the abandoned property next to Huxley, once owned by Lavinia's family. I closed the book and looked out the window. In the orchard far below, someone moved between the trees. The yellow dress again. Too vivid to be memory, too calm to be coincidence. Path to Meadow Ridge was overgrown. Trees leaned into the trail like they wanted to stop me from reaching it. No one had walked this way in years, but something had, just recently. Broken stems, crushed clover, a faint trail of pale yellow petals carried by the wind. The house sat in a hollow, half swallowed by ivy. Its windows were clouded but not broken, as if the place still wanted to see but not be seen. Inside, silence, not even birds. I entered the living room first, every piece of furniture covered in white sheets, ghost-like. But one sheet had been disturbed recently, wrinkled, corners pulled, as if someone had sat there and watched the door. On the mantel, children's drawings, crayon on old paper, faded but still legible. 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a girl in yellow. The girl had no eyes, just black circles. The man and woman had names written beneath them, father and mother, but under the girl only one word: listen. In the kitchen drawer, I found a family Bible. Inside, a birth record had been removed, the page torn out violently, but an imprint remained. Lavinia, August 3rd, 1998. On the back of the same page, scrawled in ink, the girl doesn't speak, but she knows. Suddenly the old door slammed behind me. Wind, maybe, or memory. But when I turned to leave, I saw it. A child's handprint, fresh, on the dust-covered window, from the inside. I returned to the house just before sunset. The orchard looked the same, still golden, indifferent. But the house had changed, not in structure, in temperature, colder, as if it remembered what I had done. I descended into the basement, following a note left on the front steps. Typed, no signature,
Just 3 words. Check the shelves. The storage room was cluttered with decades of forgotten life. Broken radios, boxed books, twisted furniture. On the 3rd shelf, behind a rusted toolbox, I found a reel-to-reel recorder, plugged in, still warm. I hit play. Static, then a woman's voice, not clear, not new. He said he'd leave her, said it over and over, but he never packed. Click. Then again, he said he'd leave her. The tape looped over and over. A confession, a recording of Lavinia herself. The voice was fragile, angry, wounded, the kind that holds love like a knife, too tightly. There was a second tape beside the machine, unlabeled. I played it. Screaming, not loud, muffled, like through walls, like someone had recorded it, not to hear it, but to keep it, to revisit it, to remember it exactly. And over the screaming, barely audible, "She made me stay, she made me stay, she made me..." The tape burned out. So did the lights, and in that moment, the scent returned. Not lavender, not daffodil, smoke. The master bedroom was pristine, unnervingly so. It was as if the Devereaux never truly lived in it. No pictures on the dresser, no impressions on the bed. But the fireplace told another story. Behind a loose brick near the hearth, I found a compartment. Inside, a velvet pouch, once red, now faded. It held a single folded sheet of paper. A letter, no envelope, no address. The handwriting was unmistakably Lavinia's, elegant, unfiltered. The date read September 12th, 2025, 5 days before Harold died. "You told me to wait, that she'd leave you eventually, but she never did, and you never tried to make her. So I did something else. I watched you both for years, and I understood something. You don't want her to leave. You want me to stay. But I won't. I won't be the secret anymore." There was no signature, but at the bottom a smear, possibly tears, possibly ink. But the back of the letter carried something stranger, a list, in Lavinia's hand, but written mechanically. Bottle of Merlot, the ladder, her gloves, shovel, a plan. I ran a check on estate inventory logs. 1 bottle of Devereaux Merlot, 2003 vintage, had been recorded as broken the night Harold died. The label had blood on it, not his. I returned to the caretaker and asked about the fireplace. He looked at me long, then said, "That room's been cold for months." A pause, then quieter. "But the hearth was warm this morning. You tell me how that happens." Outside, the orchard lights flickered, and the sound of someone walking barefoot over gravel echoed against the window.
The Huxley family cemetery sat at the edge of the orchard, hidden behind a row of overgrown hedges. 5 stone markers, 4 names, 1 blank. No one could tell me who was buried there. They all looked away, even the caretaker. I knelt beside the unmarked grave. The soil was loose, freshly turned within the past month. But Harold had died just days ago, and his wife months before that. So who was this? I brushed away the moss along the base of the blank headstone. Faint, shallow etching revealed itself beneath. L. That's all. Just a single letter. Not even a name. Just erasure. Next to the grave, I noticed something small embedded in the dirt, a silver earring. It matched the one seen in the old photo from the study, the photo with the woman looking at the camera. It was Lavinia's.
The ground yielded easily beneath my hands, not a deep burial, not a formal one. 6 inches down, fabric, a pale yellow dress, folded, not decayed. And beneath it, something wrapped in plastic, an evidence bag. Inside, a wedding ring. Harold's. But what chilled me more was what was etched inside the band, a custom inscription. To L for every lifetime we weren't allowed. I stood. Wind pressed through the trees, carrying the scent of old perfume, and turned earth. Behind me, I heard footsteps, deliberate, slow, barefoot, but when I turned, no one was there. Only a voice, not in the air, but in the mind. She buried more than love here.
The house had gone silent again, but not empty. Each step I took felt mirrored, not echoed, mirrored, as if someone walked with me, not after me. I turned corners slowly, not from fear, from expectation. At the top of the main staircase, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then stayed off. I pulled out my flashlight and moved forward. Then I saw her. Just ahead, standing in the hallway outside the guest room. Yellow dress, dark hair, bare feet. She didn't move, didn't speak, but her head tilted slightly, like she recognized me. My voice caught in my throat, not from fear, but from sudden understanding. She wasn't hiding. She was waiting. I took a step forward. She didn't flinch. I took another. "Lavinia?" I asked. She blinked, then slowly lifted her hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back, she was gone. But where she'd stood, something lay on the floor. A photograph, burned at the edges. Harold, Lavinia, and Harold's wife, all 3 of them, together. But the wife's face had been scratched out with something sharp. I flipped the photo over, scrawled in shaky ink. One of us had to go. There was a smear of blood along the edge, but not dried, still warm.
The archive was hidden behind a false wall in the library. Not even the caretaker knew it was there, or pretended not to. But the dust pattern on the floor suggested someone had entered recently, and not through the main door. Inside were rows of legal folders, birth records, estate ledgers, and one locked drawer. The key was already in it. Inside, a folder labeled in Harold's handwriting, "Contingency." The pages inside weren't notarized, weren't even dated properly, but they were signed 3 times, all Harold, all trembling. "If she dies first, burn everything. If I die first, seal the rooms. If she finds out, bury the rest." No names, but every pronoun pointed like a weapon. Another paper, tucked behind the folder, was more personal, a torn page from a notebook. I loved them both, but not the same. One out of duty, one out of fire. I couldn't let either go, so I held on too long. And now one is gone, the wrong one. Herr Schatten folded the page slowly, staring at the words like they might erase themselves. Then he noticed something odd. At the very bottom of the folder, taped inside, was a key, small, rusted,
labelled only root cellar. But the estate had no root cellar, at least not on any plans, not on any map, not officially. And when he asked the caretaker, the man froze, then said, "Sir, that door's been bricked for a reason."
The map didn't show it, the blueprints didn't mention it, but the ground remembered. East of the orchard, past the tree line, I found it, a slight dip in the land covered in ivy and broken stone. When I pushed aside the brush, there it was, a bricked arch, uneven, deliberately concealed. Someone tried to make it look like it had collapsed naturally. But behind the bricks, the hinges were intact, and the rusted key slid in smoothly. Inside, a cold, narrow stairwell. The air was wet, metallic. At the bottom, a long stone chamber. No shelves, no food, only a single wooden chair, and a reel-to-reel recorder humming, still running. It clicked. "You lied," a woman's voice whispered through the static. "You said it would be ours, but I waited in this place, and no one came." Click. She laughed when she saw the ring. I think she knew. She wanted me to feel small. Click. So I made her quiet, and you buried me for it. Each sentence looped, calm, composed, like Lavinia had recorded them, not in rage, but in resolve. I looked around the chamber and noticed something. Symbols carved into the stone, repeated, circular, not spiritual, not ritualistic, personal. Each one was the letter L, hundreds of them. And in the corner of the room, a mirror, cracked but clean. And in the reflection, she stood behind me, not moving, not blinking. But in the next breath, she was gone. I walked the West Wing again, not searching, retracing. Each step I took echoed another's, not just Lavinia's, but Harold's, his wife's, even the caretaker's. They had all known something, all hidden something. I opened every door I had previously ignored, guest rooms, closets, service corridors. And in each, I found something small, a glove, a thread, a photo half torn. None of it proof, but all of it weight. The deeper I went, the more the house pushed back. Lights flickered again, doors creaked, not haunted, ashamed. In a linen closet, I found something strange, a stack of envelopes addressed to Lavinia, never sent, all written in Harold's handwriting. You don't understand what you do to me. I tried to stop loving you, but she saw it anyway. You said I'd regret it. I do, but not for the reason you think. Then the last one. If I could go back, I'd let her leave, and I'd go with you. There was a ring inside, simple, gold, inscribed only with begin. He had chosen, but too late. I stepped out of the closet and froze. At the end of the hallway, a woman stood again. Not Lavinia, Harold's wife. She looked at me, then slowly turned and walked through a locked door. I followed. The door opened. Inside, a nursery. Never mentioned, never furnished, but in the middle of the floor, a crib. Empty. And on the wall, written in ash, they took everything from her, so she took everything back.
I sat in the central parlor. The house was quiet, but not at rest. Somewhere upstairs, a door creaked open, then shut. Down the hall, the floor shifted as if someone had just passed. I laid out the evidence on the table. The unsigned will, the unsent letters, the burned photograph, the voice recordings, the yellow dress, the ring marked "Begin." Each piece alone meant little, but together they told a single story. A man loved two women, one loved him back, the other owned his name. Neither would leave, so he delayed, and in that hesitation, someone vanished. Not instantly, not violently, but piece by piece, until there was no one left to speak for her. So she spoke herself, in letters, in walls, in mirrors, in scent, in sound. This house was never haunted. It was inhabited by memory. And memory, unlike ghosts, doesn't fade. It repeats. I heard footsteps again, soft, familiar. Then the lights dimmed. The phonograph in the corner turned on by itself. Lavinia's voice crackled through. "You saw me. That makes you part of it." The front door opened. Wind filled the room. I stood, gathered the evidence, and walked into the night. Behind me, the house stood still, but every window glowed faintly, as if someone was watching from inside. Still.